This is Tony Chimmel, and I'd like to introduce the hosts of the Game Marks podcast, George Feis and Johnny Clash.
Welcome to the Game Marks podcast, where each and every week we take a deep dive into the good, the bad, and the awesome. All things wrestling video games. My name is George Feis.
I'm the man we call.
Well, technically, yeah.
We didn't even take the shot yet. I'm the man they call Johnny Clash, and today we are playing Kinnikuman Dirty Challenger. Will it get a rating of Play It Forever?
Woo!
Or Future Endeavor?
You're fired!
We also discuss story-driven games, and we are giving away a Dubby pre-workout energy prize pack just for donating to St. Jude.
And as always, please subscribe and leave a 5-star rating and a review for this podcast on both Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you choose to listen, and follow along on all forms of social media at Game Marks Pod. And don't forget, you can get ad-free access and early access to this podcast, along with show notes and a whole lot more, just by joining our Patreon for $5. Patreon.com/GameMarksPod. John, we are coming in hot this week. We got a donation, still raising money for St. Jude's from our friends over at the Secret Levels podcast. So we have to do 2 back-to-back shots right now, and we are maybe a minute into this podcast. So
it is 8:45 p.m. on a Wednesday. Ready for shot number 1.
It's all for a good cause, John. Cheers.
Cheers. That one went up the nose.
And now the fun part, we gotta pour a second one immediately. It's all for a good cause, John. That's what I keep telling myself.
This Dubby is gonna taste real good after that.
Yeah, I have water as a chaser, so that's...
I need a minute. My eyes are tearing. That went up the nostrils.
Yeah, that's never good. I think that may be... Like, is there anything worse? Like, what's worse, soda? Like the soda up in the sinuses, or when alcohol, like beer or anything,
this
goes
is pretty
up?
bad. All right, we just got to do it.
All right, here we go. Cheers. Number 2. Thank you again, Secret Levels.
Secret Levels and Goobs in the chat right now. Love those guys. I'm going to take a swig of this W and see what happens.
Yeah, that's a lot to do at the start of the episode. It's only downhill from here.
Cherry limeade. Okay, while we're doing that, let's talk about last week's episode, Virtual Pro Wrestling 64.
Love it.
Ended up being, I know you said this 2 weeks ago with Fire Pro Returns when we remastered this. That ended up being one of my favorite episodes ever, this VPW 64 episode. We had a live crowd here on YouTube. We were raising money. We were having a good time playing a good game. And I always get that rush of, like, I want to play this game after listening back to the episode, doing the editing and the socials for the week. Such a good game. I went back and I put it back on. I
See, that's the problem with, like, okay, so we have friends. A lot of them also have their own podcasts. Some of them are here tonight. I feel like a large majority of people don't listen back to their podcast. And I think the term that we've heard the most is, I lived it. I don't have to re-listen to it. But you and I, since the beginning, I've like gone back and forth and like had to do like large sections of catch-ups at certain points. But for a large portion of you have remained consistent, and we both have listened to it. And I find that that's the thing that always happens, especially when it's a game that we both really liked, is that I'll listen back, and 90% of the time I'm listening either commuting to work or while sitting at my desk at work. And I'm like, well, crap. The only thing I want to do now is play this game that I just listened to you and I like talk about and relive this episode. I'm like, man, I hope other people, like, that's my hope for the podcast, is that people listen to the episodes and then they're like jazzed to also like go home and play the games that they either are excited about because we sound excited about them, or they have their own experience. They're like, oh yeah, I do remember this game and it was really fun.
Well, George, I think you do just such a good job with this podcast, which is why I listen back. You're such a just great fella. You're a good friend. We have a great time playing Lego Fortnite. It's a good time. And thank you, Steve Hoker, for the $25 donation.
Oh, thank you very much, Steve, for that wonderful donation. But John, I got to tell you, my favorite thing about doing this podcast is what a spectacular graphic designer you are. You are one of my favorite designers, A, to work with, and B, to see the designs that you make. Very few people that I trust to do graphic design, and you are on a very short list of people that I feel completely confident in giving any kind of design project to.
Well, that's great that we're starting a graphics company together.
What? What?
We also got a $40 donation from the Elder Spork, and he wants a Creative Pro themed haiku.
Ooh, okay.
Now, George, how does a haiku work?
So it's 575. So the first sentence is 5 syllables, the second sentence is 7, and then the last is 5. So it would be like,
I almost got one. But to go back to what you said before, how listening back to the episode early on, that's how I would like catch mistakes when we were just starting out, when I was editing on GarageBand, like on the train ride. Like I would edit the episode. I don't have time to like listen through again after it's edited. So I would just post it and then listen early enough where like no one would be listening yet and just catch like a mistake or two if they happen. Where now though, I have it down to such a science that like I'm writing down as we go, like where the mistakes are, what has to happen, that I don't even listen while editing anymore. Like I have it in double speed and I'm just finding the spots and that's it.
And I think that, you know, I'd like to think that over the course of doing this for almost 5 years that we've gotten better and that there's significantly less and less edits that need to happen. But I've got my haiku here.
Do they have to rhyme?
No. It just needs to be 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. So mine is
syllables or words?
Syllables. So mine's going to tie into the compliment. Ready? Create a pro champ. His name is. Oh wait, no. You know, shit. I had it, and then we started talking about the other thing. You know him as Johnny Clash. Play it forever.
Okay. I was the first grad. Mark was the man I put down. Create a pro.
Create a pro
champ.
Oh, there you go. I was just like, it's got to be something about. So I had one in my head because I was like, someone's going to be like, all right, wrestling haiku, Cutie Suzuki. And I was like, I know this is going to happen. So I had in my head a Cutie Suzuki one, and the last line of the Cutie Suzuki one was play it forever.
All right. And we know, listening at home, you're not in the moment here. This might be boring, but it's all for St. Jude. So enjoy it. Let's talk about some things that happened this week. We kind of knew this one was coming. E3 has been canceled for good. They put out a tweet, a very dry tweet. There was no fun, no humor in it or anything, nothing like thank you everybody. It literally just said, after more than 2 decades of serving as a central showcase for the US and global video game industry, ESA has decided to end E3. Now, you could blame COVID. It was a COVID shutdown.
Yeah.
You could blame the rise of Xbox and PlayStation events and all that, where Bethesda, there's just game expos left and right that you don't really need E3 anymore. Everything's digital. But what a shame. Like, it's just end of an era. It's like when G4, whatever it's called, TV shut down or
oh
whatever.
God. I love G4. Like, Attack of the Show was great.
They tried to make a comeback. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There was just something about that like first run of Attack of the Show. Like it was just like, it felt like I don't know, felt like TRL for gamers.
George, we got another $100 donation from Secret Levels. And they wrote, they look thirsty. I guess we should buy these guys a shot. I know it's a one. I know you're tired. You're barely making it through. You already got the hair poking out the front of the snapback. We're having a good time.
Just a regular Wednesday for George streaming, though.
Here we go, Georgie. 6 shots.
Hold on, I gotta pour. It's like
I'm already done.
Oh God. All right.
Thank you, Secret Levels, for buying us a shot.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Anyway, E3 is done. That is just such a shame. End of an era.
Yeah, for sure.
You wonder what's going to fill that void, if not already. I mean, there's the Microsoft events and whatever I just said.
Well, I wonder if maybe more developers are going to start taking those kinds of things in-house. I mean, we've seen stuff like that, in the past where they have, developers and publishers have done their own announcements. I mean, look at what Rockstar's doing. They're doing less of they're kind of having their own events. Like they're posting their own teasers. They're not waiting for like that video that played for GTA 6.
Oh, beautiful.
Would have 100% been something showcased at E3 with no fanfare, no like big speech beforehand. It would have been one of those things where like the lights go down, you see the Rockstar logo, crowd goes wild. Because I feel like once you see the Rockstar logo, you're thinking one of two things. It's either GTA or it's Red Dead.
Red Dead, yeah. The only thing is we're missing that one time of year where stuff's going to come out.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I look forward to this season or to E3 season every year.
But does Game Awards take that spot? It just happened, and we got a lot of reveals.
I was thinking that maybe something more like a TwitchCon or a VidCon or Comic-Con,
there's so many.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many in-person conventions that still happen, and
burping acid.
TwitchCon, VidCon, YouTube content-centric events that could allow themselves. I mean, I don't know how many times that you've been to Comic-Con. I've been a couple. Okay, so that's
always my birthday weekend. It never happens.
We got to do that one year. But I've been once or twice, and there are video games, there are publishers that have booths fully dedicated to video games. So like it's already happening, but on a bigger scale to where they're doing like full reveals and, maybe they're renting out what would otherwise be used for as like a live panel. They're renting out one of the halls to be like, hey, Rockstar at Comic-Con is going to do a reveal in this hall. And then it ends up being like a mini E3 that's just based around Rockstar, and like maybe other publishers end up doing that to announce, multiple releases for the following year.
Yeah, I guess it's just going to be spread along the board, especially now it's Christmas time. Stuff's going to come out.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're going to miss it. But let's get into some other news here. Yeah, I thought my head was spinning from the shots, but it's actually just from reading this new AEW Fight Forever tweet. Beat the Elite DLC has arrived. This is once again something you will have to pay for within the Season Pass 2. In a new, highly competitive Beat the Elite gameplay mode, Fight Forever players will face 10 random AEW talents. The last match will always be against a wrestler from the Elite. Win all 10 matches and you'll be rewarded with in-game cosmetic items. Now, the video shows unlock new skins. It has Malachi Black literally as a snakeskin character with glowing eyes. Is it a cool character? Sure. Is that what we want? No.
It suddenly feels very 2K. Like you're literally giving us like Viper Randy Orton. Like this was the thing that already happened.
No, but like last week I said during VPW, I was like, this game has more game modes than Fight Forever. This is a simple gauntlet. Couldn't this have been in from the start?
Yeah. Or like just a free edition. Like
it doesn't even have to be for new skins from the start. You can make that a thing after. It could have been for like in-game currency.
Yeah. You turn this into like a battle pass of sorts where there's like a free Beat the Elite pass and a public and a paid Beat the Elite pass. And some of the things are like, you get to like a new profile picture or you get, like small things here and there.
Like Marvel Snap. Get the new little icon or something.
Yep. See, so this is, and
I'm getting louder and louder as the shot settles in.
I know that we talk about this a lot, and I feel like over the course of the last couple of months since we've gotten back into it, we've talked about it a lot more on the podcast. And I don't know if people are annoyed by it or they don't mind or they support it. But love them or hate them, Epic and Fortnite, their method of doing the battle pass is great, and I'll throw Snap in there, Marvel Snap in there too, because there is a free and a paid version. Like you can get tons of content without ever having to buy the battle pass.
Right, but the paid one also you get like the V-Bucks within it to pay for the next one if you finish it all.
So you spend the $9.50 V-Bucks, which is like $10 in real life, and then if you complete the battle pass, you get the $9.50 to buy the next season's battle pass, which you in theory, as long as you're playing the game, you only have to pay for it once.
It just seems like they're just throwing stuff out there and saying this is part of season 2. They didn't think of anything, and it's just I don't know.
It doesn't feel like a cash grab because I don't. It feels like poor planning. No, because it feels like poor planning, and they don't know what to do, so they're just like, we'll just put this in a DLC pack, or we'll make this like a new version of the game where it's just like they have good ideas that could extend the life of the game, but they're all so far spaced out and all behind a paywall.
Yeah, I don't know. Like our buddy Hoker just said, AEW pay forever.
Yeah.
I get that this game wants to be like the sustainable game that just keeps getting updated and grows. And I hope one day it does grow into something that's really cool. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
I have high hopes, but we'll see what happens. But
happens.
Let's move on to something a little happier, John. We kind of spilled the beans before we got into the recording of the episode. We have a new little product sponsorship happening in the next couple of weeks. Your boys over at the Game Marks podcast have joined the lineup over at Mad Cat Beard Company. Mad Cat Beard Care. You know him, you love him. If you're a fan of this podcast, Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, Going Postal, you've heard them talk about it before. High quality, handmade beard care products. Just great. Our scent is coming out. It is called Play It Forever. It is blood orange, vanilla, and black clove. It has arguably, I may be biased because it's ours, my favorite scent of any of the Mad Cat Beard Cares. And that's knowing that I fully promote Swoggles as well on that podcast. But I am very, very excited about ours. I know John is as well. And once it launches, you can use code GameMarks over at madcatbeardcare.com to save yourself 15% on your order. Again, madcatbeardcare.com. We will make a formal announcement on all of our social media when the product actually launches. Huge shout out and a huge thank you over to Josh and the team at Mad Cat Beard Care.
It could be tomorrow, honestly. We've been talking to them. It's going to be before Christmas, so it could be tomorrow. It could be Friday.
That is
true. Could be when you're listening to this on Monday. I love this. You put in my head that it reminds you of when you would make like the stovetop Christmas scent with like the cinnamon and all that, but it's just vanilla. It's not overly sweet. Like the orange just smells so good. Yeah, like I wore it this weekend and I was just like, everyone's like, oh, what's that smell? I'm like, oh, it's my Mad Cat. Not only is Mad Cat my backyard wrestling name, but come on, look at this. Look at the artwork. Look how beautiful.
It's great.
That is.
It's great.
We don't normally trust anyone with our artwork when it comes to designing the brawlers.
As two designers,
anything. We want to submit the artwork for everything. But Mad Cat said, I got this. We said, go for it. And look at that.
Knocked it out of the
Beautiful.
park.
Play It Forever. The new scent coming soon.
Very excited. Oh man. Yeah. I don't know. I'm very excited. But listen, if you guys are in the chat right now, you can see in between John and I, there are some incentives to help us raise even more money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And for those listening at home, we will take you through what we are doing. That way, if John and I randomly start doing things in the middle of the episode, you know why. So for
we already have
$2, you will get a live shout out in the podcast. For $10, John and I will do a live rock, paper, scissors. For $25, like you heard John and I do earlier, we will compliment each other. For $30, John and I will sing absolutely everything for 1 minute. For $40, like you heard earlier, John and I will make up a wrestling or video game related haiku. That is a 575 syllable poem of the topic of the donor's choosing. For $50, we will do a hot take of the donor's choosing. Last week, it was a good one. We did Is Harry Potter a Christmas movie? And then that spawned into a whole conversation about Christmas movies, which then led into the latest episode of Clash and Burn, where Johnny Clash talked about his favorite Home Alone 3.
I laid it all out. Laid it all on the line there. Home Alone 3. Listen, check it out.
And if you haven't been paying attention, for $100 at any point during the podcast, John and I will do a shot. Our good friends over at the Secret Levels podcast have made sure that we've done 3 shots tonight. So, the next 40 minutes is going to be real interesting. And if at any point throughout the course of the recording of this podcast, if anyone wants to donate $1,000 wherever we are, we could be doing the outro. We could be talking about what we're playing next week. $1,000 donation. We start completely from the beginning of the episode. We go back to the Welcome to the Game Marks podcast.
Oh boy.
That part. Yeah. And then I don't think we have to redo the donations. So we don't have to do 3 more shots. But yeah, that's the lay of the land for this week's donations. And then, of course, after we get through the soft lock this week, we will be giving away the Dubby prize pack that you heard Johnny Clash talk about earlier.
Get that dub.
And then, right now, before we get into the deep dive, we of course want to thank all the sponsors for Gameboree this year. You've got Best Batch Promotions hanging out in the chat right now. Major Bendy's Smack Talk Showdown, the Run-In Podcast, and the What the World Watch Podcast. Thank you again for all of your support for this year's event. And man, oh man, John, are you ready to do the deep dive into one of the weirdest roller coaster games I've ever played? Are you ready to talk about Kinnikuman Dirty Challenger?
I think so. We might as well just get into it.
All right, so Kinnikuman Dirty Challenger released August 21st of 1992 for the Super Famicom, published by Yutaka. Other games in the wrestling world in 1992, you've got WWF Superstars 2, WWF European Rampage Tour, WWF Super WrestleMania, WWF WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge, Thunder Pro Wrestling Retsuden, Fire Pro Wrestling 3 Legend Bout, and Super Fire Pro Wrestling 2. Most of those we've played. I think the only 2 that we haven't played is Super Fire Pro Wrestling 2 and Fire Pro Wrestling 3 Legend Bout.
Yeah, those are the 2 as well that I was thinking about. I was thinking Fire Pro Wrestling 2 we might have played, but I don't think so.
No, we did Super Fire Pro Wrestling X.
Yes.
And we did Fire Pro Wrestling 1.
It's really hard to keep up with these. I am burping up this whiskey so bad.
Do you need to take a break and go get a Tums?
No, I'm good. I'm going to power through this.
Yeah, see, this is the problem with all of the Fire Pro Wrestling games, is that there's so many that at a certain point you're just like, because everyone starts with Fire Pro Wrestling, you're just like, did we play that one? Where does that fall into the Rolodex?
As this game progresses, and as our playthrough progressed, we have realized that this one tried to take after the Fire Pro series. Yeah. Might have fallen a little short on some of the mechanics, but we picked it because it is Kinnikuman Ultimate Muscle. It is one of our favorite series. We love all of these games. They're always such a good time. There's a ton for GameCube, Game Boy, everything, all of the above. It goes back to NES. But this one is more of a side-scroll wrestling game. It reminds us of Atsushi Onita. What was it? Atsushi Onita FMW?
Yeah, the game FMW.
Was.
That was like a weird sumo pushing game.
Yeah, but same like art style. You compared it to Power Rangers from the sound, but I think even some of the like the look of it even was a little Power Ranger-y.
When we played that last match, the cage match, the background felt very similar of the SNES Power Rangers game.
SNES really did have just good, beautiful, bright graphics. Sega too. I was a Sega kid. You were a SNES kid.
I was an SNES
This one on the Super Famicom. But this one is more of, it's just very linear, it's very 2D, it's very pretty, but There's a lot of major flaws that we're going to get into, but the game is based on the survivor match for the Kinnikuman Throne saga, which started just after the Dream Trojan tag team chapter ended of the Kinnikuman series. Whatever the hell that means, I don't know, because I have not watched the anime ever. But
that would be a fun bonus episode. Just like we watch like a season.
I'm still trying to power through Yu-Gi-Oh! No, we're trying here. So when you get into the game, you think you could just start running at the person. You think you could just start throwing strikes.
Yeah, no.
The whole controller buttons are very unresponsive. I did a deep dive on Google of some Reddit posts, of some other video game forum posts, and unresponsive seemed to be the theme that everybody kept going with when describing this game.
I think it's just got weird pacing.
Right, but you press a button, it doesn't happen right away. It's not like now where you press a strike, the strike is happening. It's like press the button, strike. You know, it's not right away.
Yeah, there is a little weird input delay.
And it's not us. That's just how the game is.
Because moving is fine.
The grapples were the weird part where we could not figure them out. It was like we were dancing. We were just grappled, sitting there for a minute or two.
Weird hug session.
A weird hug session. Upon my research, everyone seemed to have this problem, so we knew it wasn't just us. And people were saying they played it on the Famicom, they played it on a ROM, an emulator, blah, blah, blah. Always the same problem. But it's not a problem once you figure it out. So one guy decided to explain it all, and that's when it started to click. It's still wonky because once you start the tie-up with the other person, the lockup, you wait for your knees to like do a dip down, and that's when you have to press one of the buttons.
But sometimes
any of the face buttons,
that could take, 10 seconds. Like it's not like you lock up and then it happens immediately. You could sometimes be sitting there for a couple of seconds.
Now I'm wondering if it was easier with the computer, if it happens quicker, because maybe if neither of us presses a button after the lockup, it happens quicker. Maybe the more you press, the longer it takes.
See, I was thinking like maybe it's like if you hit weak grapple and I hit strong grapple, like I started to think like
there is no weak and strong.
No, so I was like if you think of it in the sense of Fire Pro, you have your weak attack, your medium attack, your strong attack. So I was just like, okay, maybe there's like some kind of logic in how you do your moves where it's like it takes into consideration how much damage has been done and then what grapple you're going for. So like if you've done no damage, but you go for a strong grapple and I go for a weak grapple, it'll do the weak grapple because you wouldn't hit the strong attack anyway because not enough damage has been done. So I was like trying to like figure out like what the mechanics are, what the logic was, and it really just ended up being where you just had to wait for your characters to like bend their knees and then you could do a move. Like there was no other logic aside from that.
It's crazy how much it clicked once we realized that.
Yeah.
It's definitely still a lot to be desired, but we were able to hit grapples. The running mechanic is weird because usually we're used to just flying at our opponent, but I guess they did this because it is so linear. You have to hit the ropes behind you first, and then you do a running attack. It makes it a little easier to get away from your opponent. I kind of like that. And
I guess that's the real only like evade style mechanic in the game. Like you can block if you hit back and someone goes for an attack and you don't hit any other button.
Or if you're like layered over your opponent, you won't hit them.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's just like weird collision detection. But yeah, that's really the only evasive. Like there's nothing else that we did in all of our button mashing throughout the playthroughs to make that happen. But was it effective in the sense of like, did you feel like you were playing a wrestling game?
No, not really.
This felt like
I don't know.
It felt like a weird combination of Fire Pro and Slam Masters.
Yeah, I could see that. But even like what's it called? The old like All Japan games that we used to play that were like this, they felt like wrestling games. There was way more wrestling mechanics to them. This one just felt
really
like
arcadey.
I don't really know what it like, to be honest. I don't know.
It felt more like fighter, like Street Fighter arcade style game, not necessarily like a wrestling game. Because like if you think about it, like you'd be like, oh, it's just because it's side scrolling, but like Royal Rumble, King of the Ring, Steel Cage Challenge, like all of those are side scrolling, but I think it's the movement mechanic and the weird grapple delays that just like if the pacing for this game was faster, I think it would feel a lot better.
And the submissions, you get held in the submissions for
There's
minutes.
no way to break a submission. It's insane.
You're supposed to button mash to get out. There's got to be something in there that we were missing also.
Or it's got to be like certain buttons.
Yeah, because you just spent forever in the submissions and then you just give up. But the weird thing also, did you notice the health bar as you were in a hold or getting beat up, it would go up no matter what?
So as you're I think down on the ground, like recovering and in submission, both characters, their spirit, their adrenaline boost meter, whatever it is, their finisher bar would continue to increase. And there's two or multiple stages to it. So like about like half or 3/4 of the way through, your bar goes from blue to green to yellow to orange to red. When it's in red, you're able to do your finisher, but if you let it fill up all the way, the finisher does more damage. But, you know, if you're playing a game with a lot of, or match with a lot of submissions, you could get multiple like full bars within a single match. So it's really about that. That is like a weird kind of strategy aspect to this game.
Yeah, and let's talk about those finishers because they were definitely one of the strong points of this game. They threw us off guard in the beginning. They're very easy to hit. It's just the R bumper. And they're like little cinematics of your wrestler taking over the screen. It's like a fade in, fade out, and it's just a cool move. Like one guy had a flaming elbow drop that came down.
Awesome.
But in this cinematic, you see it happen, but then when it cuts back to the ring, it's like the end of that move. So you saw like the flaming elbow happen. Some guys are like a big headbutt that looks like a drill. Some of them are really weird.
Package pile driver.
Yeah, the flaming one was definitely the coolest one we saw for sure.
Yeah, the headbutt one was cool. I just think that it went on for too long. Like it was too many like headbutt zoom, zoom, headbutt. But like the concept of the move was cool looking.
Yeah. Let's talk about the actual game modes in here. So for one player only, you have a scenario mode where you take on the entire roster to become the world champion. Each match is presented with a pre-fight cutscene or a promo featuring the 5 opponents the player will face, and there's 2 hidden boss characters we're going to get into later. And there are 5 regular matches in total, which are up to 3 rounds in each of them. And if a player loses 2 consecutive rounds in a match against the computer, the game is over. And each character has their own ending at the end of scenario mode, which is always a good time, always fun. You always want that in a game. Now, there's also group battle, where it's an elimination style battle mode where each player takes on 3 wrestlers. So we did this. It's in the playthrough. We each picked 3 wrestlers. There's only 6, so you're only getting the base roster
you gotta get those selections in quick.
Till you get those hidden wrestlers. And then it's kind of like what we did last week in VPW with the elimination match. You just go down the list and last man standing wins.
So let me tell you.
Does carry over to the next round also.
The gameplay comparison from going to the multi-man match in VPW to the multi-man match in this, I would think in my head that a Super Nintendo game would be so much faster than an N64 game, and it's just not.
It's just not. No, but I don't know.
There's not a lot of like game modes either, which was like another point where, usually we open up the game modes and we're just like, oh, John, do the translation, because there's like 6 options. Single player versus mode, and then
you do get the different like end scenes and all that in the scenario mode with each different wrestler. So
yeah, but just
to do. I
don't know. I feel like I'm just used to like a certain. I feel like we've played so many of these like genre of games that like I'm used to a certain level of like depth and repetitiveness, but with a lot of different game modes. But I guess, okay, I'm going to take back what I just said, because the levels make it feel like different game modes. So like there is like that cage match aspect when you're fighting in the jail. There's the one that has the electric wire. So there's game modes, but the game modes are dependent on the level that you're having the match in. So I guess it's just where you select it that you get the different the different modes. Like if you wanted to do a death match, you would just select the electric wire arena and and so on. But
Yeah.
do you want to talk about this roster, man? It's a stacked roster.
Talk about this roster. I relax a little bit. You took too many shots. I know you're tired. I'm going to read this messy roster. You have Kinnikuman. You have Big Body, Soldier, Mariposa, Zebra, and Phoenix. But now your hidden roster, you have Kinnikuman Great and Terryman. We were missing Terryman.
No, we're missing Sunshine, the block guy.
Yeah, there's a lot missing here.
That's obviously the guy. He's just made of like squares.
It's like a pyramid, right?
Oh yeah. But his character changes into like different shapes. Like at some points he's a block, and sometimes he's like pyramid, and then
he is a block actually.
So I remember at one point in one of the, I think it's the GameCube game, you like flatten out and like spear across the entire map. Yeah.
What is he made out of? Hang on, I want to actually know.
It's tofu. It's like
he is a giant golem, like yellow golden. He is made of sand and gold dust.
Yeah, thank God there's a noise gate because that did not come through. Oh God! All right, let's talk about. We talked about how
gold dust sounds.
I couldn't hear them, but just the face that you made me think that I didn't want to hear them. So we talked about the levels and how the levels can change the actual gameplay. Let's go through those. Since you did the roster, I will take us through the actual levels. So you have Kunamoto Castle, which is your normal standard wrestling ring. You have Snow Mountains, which has a sliding floor, which makes it harder to run during the match. You have the Coliseum, which touching the ropes will inflict damage, and running attacks are fully disabled. You have Savannah's Prairie, which is bouncing from the ropes while running, has been decreased in distance. So I guess how we were using it as like an evasive attack, you just don't bounce off the ropes and run as far. You kind of stop in the middle. Prison is a normal ring, but it presents as a cage match. And the building under construction, you will be wrestling on a concrete floor, which will inflict double damage. So not a ton of game modes, but the stages that you pick to have your match kind of make it feel like different game modes. If you wanted to feel like it was a backstage brawl or a street fight, you could do the construction. If you wanted it to feel like a electric barbed wire death match, you can do the Coliseum. So there's options to make it kind of feel like there's different game modes, and all of those are also available in the single and in the versus mode as well for both the 1v1 and the team battles.
Yeah, really cool how immersive every stage of this is. It makes even the scenario mode that much more fun because you don't know what you're going to get. So pretty cool. Yeah. Let's take a quick little break to pay the bills, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the artwork here.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so Kinnikuman, always known for their bright, eccentric covers and artwork and anime style. This one isn't really that far off either. It's got a big Kinnikuman up here, and it just says...
It's pretty tame compared to the other ones that we've played.
Yeah, in the Japanese font, Kinnikuman, it says Dirty Challenger under it in the gold. I guess we could have done a little more with the background here, but I think it gets the job done. If you know the character, you're buying the game, and that's really it.
That's
if
the
you're
selling
a fan
point
of Ultimate Muscle, yeah.
For the game is the character. If you know Kinnikuman, you're a fan of the series, that's going to be the thing. So really just the text and the character huge is what's going to sell it. But man, I forgot how like I'm used to a certain like rectangle for Super Nintendo games, like the horizontal presentation of the box. So having the Super Famicom be vertical and like the SNES cartridge or the SNES box turned on its side, it always throws me off, and I keep forgetting about it. I'm just like, man, why is it like this? I'm like, oh yeah.
Is N64 the same in Japan too? They're all vertical?
I don't...
Portrait as you wheel?
I don't know. Let me double check that. N64...
I feel like VPW was last week. Let's get into what the actual art of the game is like. You enter into the same logo with Kinnikuman running down the aisle.
Vertical.
Interesting. Really cool intro and all that. You got a nice opening cinematic as well when you enter the game. Everything's just so drawn out nicely. That was the good thing about the Sega and the Super Famicom, Super Nintendo era. you got really nice like animations that just popped the color because, we all know how Nintendo looked. It was a couple crappy colors and that was it.
Yeah.
But then you get this awesome system and bam, it's just in your face.
Famicom, SNES, Sega.
Cell shading and yeah.
It's great. And then like just to see, and I know I bring this up all the time when we talk about the Super Nintendo, but like how creative and like out of the box thinking some of the developers were. Like Donkey Kong Country made 3D renders of the characters and then converted those into like 16-bit sprites, and then that's what they use in the game. Like so cool. And like, obviously Donkey Kong Country and Rare aren't the only, weren't the people to do it. But for me, in my experience, that was like my first exposure to something like that. And I was like, wow, that's insane that like they would even think to do stuff like that. And it just shows like, one, how far technology has come over the course of like, from the original Nintendo and Atari to like where we are now. But like also kind of gives you an appreciation for games like this of this generation.
We've talked about Donkey Kong a lot today.
Oh yeah.
I really like the depth of the arenas and the stages here. There are some games, WWF, WCW, where the ring has no dimension to it. It's just 4 corner posts and that's it. I think even though this is a very linear game, it looks so cool. The crowd is all shaded. You have the announcers in the background with their big heads that they adapt to the arena, like in the jail. They're in like prison garb and like the stripes and everything. It's pretty cool. The snow, Rocky Mountain, whatever level that is, they're in like little snowsuits.
This could have very easily had just a black background with more details for like the close crowd, the guardrail, and then maybe effects in the ring. But like, no, this has like full world building experience where there's like depth and like everything feels not necessarily big, but like it feels like you're like immersive and like actually in a place. It's not just like, here's a ring, there's a black background, play the game.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they did a great job with just the art here. The moves themselves look, I think, decent once you're able to actually pull them off, the pins and whatever, the submission holds. Like, there are actual... You okay?
No, I'm trying to think of there was one thing that bothered me about the moves. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, the sliding mechanic.
What do you mean?
So, if you're too close to the ropes and you go to do a move, your character doing the move and the person doing the move will slide across the screen.
Ring awareness.
That's sure. We'll call it that. And it's good. It's good ring awareness and wrestling psychology. But on the screen, it just suddenly looks like someone like took the hook and is like pulling them off of the stage. Like you guys are over time.
Stand hook. Let's talk about the last thing here. Did you know? Did you know Kinnikuman Dirty Challenger has cheats which allow players to increase or decrease the special bar?
Where was that when we were playing? Did you know during a match when a player performs specific moves, a small window of text will appear stating the move name from the commentators?
Did you know a complete version of this game is on eBay from $80 to $139? Complete cartridge only ranges from about $8 to $10. I did see some for bid that were like in the $1-ish range, but who knows what they'll climb up to. So let's talk about these cheats though. So there's a secret options menu here. After selecting 1 or 2 player mode, you hold L and R and select at the same time and press start. And if done correctly, a new menu will appear where you could have the credits, an HP gauge, or a special gauge, and you could slide it wherever you want. And the same goes for 2-player mode, but you get to do it for both players. Mm-hmm. Now, not only that, once you exit out of there, if you don't select either of those, if you just press the exit, you now get the hidden characters available to play on the main screen. So that's pretty cool.
That's really cool. I don't know. I just like when we talk about games, and it's just like, oh, there's cheats. Right, there's few and far between nowadays.
Yeah, I guess. Would you call that unlockables? Would you call that cheats? I guess it's kind of cheats. You're putting in a code, right?
Yeah, but even then, like unlockables still. Like think of how many wrestling games that we've played where there are quote unquote unlockables, but it's like they're in a store. Like think of how long stores have been in game. No Mercy
Beat the Elite, and then
has
you
a
get, like,
store
skin.
where you play the game to get currency, and then you buy things in the SmackDown Mall.
I wonder, like, what my original game's currency is at. I have to have, like, everything in there by now, right?
I would hope so. If not,
We're gonna find that out one day.
There's a Game Shark code for that.
But after all this time, I'm afraid I got the battery.
Oh, I know that I have the battery issue. I'm so sad.
I held on this long. But okay, it's time for some ratings and reviews here. I want you all to relax when you listen to these.
Maybe take a shot. Who knows?
You might need it after playing this game. Now, Mega Fun gives this game a 29%. Playtime gives it a 26%. And Video Games Magazine gives it a 20%. So not really good across the board. Not only that, just scouring the internet, doing the notes, getting ready for this episode, there were a lot of people playing this. I wouldn't say current day, like, later on after it came out. A lot of people playing it when it came out, later on now. The general consensus is about where a 20% score would be, I would say. There's a lot of issues, a lot of people getting frustrated, especially if you know the other games in this Ultimate Muscle series. You're a little disappointed here.
I think I don't know. I feel the same way about this, the way that I feel like about Fire Pro. Like the earlier Fire Pro games, even I struggle to play with. Like the ones on the early ones on Nintendo, like I struggle because like the timing for the grapples aren't there, and we're definitely used to like the older or the newer generation. I feel like you don't get Ultimate Muscle for the GameCube without this.
I guess just because it's in line, but I don't know. Even like Iron Slam 96, I think runs better than this, which is I don't know if that's
the 3D one, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know. Let's talk about it though. Let's check our watches here and say that it is now time to rate the game.
Would you look at the time?
The game!
George, I'll ask you first. Kinnikuman, Dirty Challenger. Will you play it forever or future endeavor?
You're fired!
I don't know, man. I'm struggling with this one, to be honest with you, because graphically, I love it. I think the presentation is great, totally in line with everything that you would expect from a Super Nintendo game, and the characters that we've come to know and love from this series and the games. But it took so much research for us to figure out just how to do the match. And that's like the whole point of the game, is to have the match. So I'm the logic in me is saying if you couldn't really play the game, that it's got to be a future endeavor. But
You're fired!
Man, it looks pretty and I like looking at it. And if it played just like 10% better, it would have been a play it forever. But now I turn the question over to you, Mr. Clash. Will you play it forever, future endeavor?
Oh, I wanted to like it so much, and it is pretty, but everything you just said, plus it's just kind of unplayable. It's not there. I'm glad they fixed it for later titles, but it's a big old double future.
You're fired!
Been a while. You can get a Future Endeavor shirt on our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/GameMarksPod.
The last future endeavor was TNA Impact on the DS and PSP.
How long ago?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 episodes ago.
Wow.
And before that, Legends of WrestleMania and American Tag Team Wrestling. It was 3 in a row.
Damn. Well, all right. So we've been pretty good about liking the games.
And Elite GM was before that.
All right. Well, John, we've rated the game. We've reviewed the game. Are you ready to spin the wheel?
Spin the wheel. Make a deal. I think we got the names in here of everybody who donated. Thank you, everyone, once again for
Thank you very
donating
much.
to St. Jude, do a good cause. You too can donate if you head on over to gamemarkspod.com/donate. It'll take you to the GoFundMe link that goes directly to St. Jude. And as soon as this episode drops tomorrow, right away, it's going to be a new week. So you are automatically entered to win the next week's stuff. So spin the wheel, make a deal. Secret Levels is in here twice. Hoker's in here. Elder's in here. Boom. Let's go, baby. Who's winning the dubby? I hope you're ready for some more Super Mario speedrunning because the Elder Spork, you're winning the Dubby prize pack, baby. Thank you very much for donating.
There you go. Well, I hope that fuels you through your return to the speedrunning world and return to Twitch.
You're going to need it.
Hell yes. All right. Do you want to tell the people at home what they will be donating for the chance to win next week?
All right. Next week, we have a special episode we're going to announce at the end, but you're going to win a Game Marks Podcast swag pack. It's going to be just a whole bunch of Game Marks Podcast items. I have some stuff in here that were exclusive to Patreon 2 years ago that we have extras of. George has stuff that I know people are going to like, and that's what you're going to win just by donating any amount now in next week's episode.
So if you're listening to this episode on Monday, if you're here in the live stream on Wednesday, any donation between now and the next recording on next Thursday, right, John? We're doing next Thursday? Next Thursday. Entered to win the GMP prize pack, swag pack, whatever you want to call it. But with that, my friend John, would you like to get into the soft lock of the week?
Let's do it.
All right, the soft lock brought to you by W. Use code GameMarksPod to save yourself 10% at W.GG. The soft lock is a segment where one of our mega marks from our Patreon asks us a question, gives us a topic to debate. It's a question of the week with a fancy name. This week comes from the reigning, defending Gameberry champion of the past couple of years, Mr. Tecker himself. And Tecker would like to know, with the success of Alan Wake 2, do you think we could see the return of live-action FMVs to tell stories in games? And then a follow-up is, which do you prefer? RPG-style text boxes with no voiceovers, seamless in-game cutscenes like The Last of Us or God of War, or full-on live-action movies? So I can answer the second part of that super fast. I always prefer some type of video because I feel like it helps set the environment more, especially when you're already playing a game that kind of, you don't need to have imagination of because you can see what's built in front of the world, as long as they don't go on for super long.
Yeah, I'm good with in-game cutscenes. I think Death Stranding did it the most seamless I've seen in a game.
Yeah.
The Last of Us 2, but yeah.
My biggest, I've talked about it a million times. I love the Metal Gear Solid series. It is my number one favorite series. Guns of the Patriots has, I think, one of the most ridiculous cutscenes. I believe it's like 20 something minutes.
Ooh.
But it sets up so much of the second half of the story that it's totally worth it. And I love it. And every time I sit through it and I watch it, but that first time, and then the game releases and it kind of started to go about online, hey, there's a really long cutscene, but it's really long, but it doesn't feel that long. At a certain point, you're like, I feel like this has been going on for a really long time. And then it ends. And you're like, oh, okay. It was
that's always
25 minutes.
Playing Jedi Fallen Order, there was a lot of cutscenes just in those first few missions that I was like, this is a little too much, but then it lets you rock and roll a little bit and it's okay. So, but to answer the first part, do we think we could see the return of live action or FMVs to tell stories in games? I don't know about the live action part. I don't really want to see that. The only way I think it's cool, I'll compare it to wrestling right now. Is if you're watching like, well, actually they do it in the showcase modes where it goes back and forth. Maybe if it's showing like parts of an old school match and like now you have to recreate it, or maybe like a Call of Duty shows like actual war footage, and then that sets. I think Medal of Honor used to do that, possibly real war footage, and then it goes into like the mission for that what just happened. But if it's just like actors, I'd rather just watch it in the game and not be taking out of that experience and then back in.
I don't know. So I feel like FMVs feel like they, like you said, they have their place. But I don't know, man. It's just like the games has evolved to be so seamless with how they present video that like having a hard cutaway to then have that weird cut, like where like it goes to black and then all of a sudden like the camera swings back around to your character, like that feels so dated. But like there's also like some like a weird nostalgia factor to that like I kind of like and I miss. But like games have gotten so insanely good at integrating those kind of cutscenes like directly into gameplay. Like I want to say it's a Need for Speed game, or maybe I'm thinking of like the car sections in GTA where like you would be driving in a cutscene and then all of a sudden like you would be driving during a cutscene and then the camera would suddenly just be like shift slightly to center, and it's like you're driving now. Like this isn't the cutscene anymore. This isn't like a video playing. You're in the game now, and it's just like it was like those seamless kinds of transitions. I feel like are just so hard to beat.
Yeah. But then on the other end, like Death Stranding, it's Norman Reedus. Like, are you going to cut to actual footage of Norman Reedus? It already looks incredible. Like, you're just going to roll with the character. Which brings me to another point, another Kojima. Did you watch the OD trailer?
I haven't yet. I have it. I have the window. God. I have the video open in a browser window as we speak.
I'm looking at it right now. I watched it a couple times. It's got what's her name? Oh, it's right here. Sophia Lillis, who is also in It and It Chapter 2. It gives you absolutely nothing about the game. It's virtually just like actor test footage virtualized, and that's the trailer. But if it's anything as cool as the trailer, then I'm all for it. Plus, it's Kojima, so like, can he go wrong, really?
I don't know. People are saying there's nods to Silent Hill and stuff. Yeah.
I also thought it was hilarious that during the Game Awards, when he was on the screen, everyone went nuts and he was trending on Twitter, and MLW posted like, "We're trending on Twitter with Kojima." It's like, no, you're not at all, actually.
I just want more Metal Gear Solid.
You never know.
Yeah, let us know what you think. What's your preference? I feel like I will say this: FMVs at like the start of a story, like a full video that plays to kind of give you like a setting of the world and stuff. That's great. And like as like a prologue or epilogue to like kind of wrap everything up, I think those are great. But like it's hard to like have those play for prolonged periods of time in the middle of the game. It kind of like takes you out of it. But let us know what you think. All forms of social media at Game Marks Pod. And Tecker, once again, thank you for this week's soft lock question. John, I'm hoping you're playing some real glorious, eccentric music in the background right now that hopefully doesn't get us copyright strike, because I would like to talk to you, or I would like you to talk with me about something that we've been talking about that we wanted to do for a number of years. What are we doing next week on the podcast?
Next week is officially the first annual Game Marks Podcast Hall of Games 2023. Now, it's going to be a George pick. It's going to be a Johnny pick. It's going to be a Patreon pick, which I think most of the votes are in, and I know it's going to make it, and it's actually pretty cool. And we're going to induct a guest. So strap in, grab a drink, grab some champagne, some popcorn. We're going to have a fun time. We're going to just kind of reflect on the year. We're going to reflect on what's coming up next year, and we're going to announce who's inducted here. So I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Very, very excited. I tried to go with a pick, because Man, the response that I've seen on social media is exactly what you would expect for people wanting us to put in a very specific N64 game, but we have rules. We haven't played that game yet, so we can't induct that specific one N64 game. But I don't know what John's pick is. I'm pretty sure John knows what mine is, and I know what the Patreon pick is. And we've got a nice diverse class going in this year.
I actually don't think I know what yours is.
Oh.
But I know what mine is, and I'm going to send it to you shortly.
Okay.
I already made the induction graphic for it.
Oh, all right. This is going to be cool. Yeah. So next week, the first ever class of 2023 into the GMP Hall of Games. But with that, guys, there's only one thing left to do. Check us out on youtube.com/GameMarksPod for our weekly playthrough videos and a whole lot more. GameMarksPod.com/shop for all of our exclusive merchandise. ProWrestlingTees.com/GameMarksPod for all of our new shirts. Johnny Clash has been sending some messages my way saying he's got a new shirt in mind. So we had a couple go up in the last couple of months, and there's going to be a new one coming up relatively soon. A Johnny Clash original. At Game Marks Pod on all forms of social media, and please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. It really helps out the podcast. And if you want to continue to help the podcast, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you choose to listen to your podcast. And if you have a product or service you would like to advertise on this podcast, please reach out to us at GameMarksPod@gmail.com. Another week, another game, another live stream. Thank you, everyone, for your live donations. And we will see you next week for the Hall of Games. Johnny Clash, do that thing.
Game over, Marks.
Game Marks Podcast, put them on the radar. Playing rare games, Sega Saturn, no Game Shark. Johnny and George work hard and they play hard. Future endeavor games and put them in the graveyard. From the deep dive to the clash at the feast. How can I get more? That's question of the week. Follow on Twitch, there's nothing that they won't play. Game Marks Podcast every single Monday.